I just want to quickly tell you what's going to happen tonight, so we get right to it. First of all, welcome. Like I said, we have facilitators, we have floaters. We'll be around, walking around, making sure that everybody's heard. We also have these tables that you see with paper in the middle of the table and markers, because we are going to record and capture everything that you say. And it's really important for us that we hear and listen to what you all have to say about this very important issue. We're also asking you to please look around the room and follow the community agreements. The community agreements are meant for us to create a space where we build community, but we also share our perspectives. Because what we want to do tonight is share perspectives, listen to one another, talk about the issue, and we also want to start thinking about creating a shared understanding about next steps and solutions. Those are our desired outcomes for tonight. Our community agreements are posted in different places by the coffee, the restrooms over here, and I'll just read them to you. So approach each other with kindness and tolerance and be tough on the topic, not on people. Respect each other, think before you speak, and listen to others with an open mind. Respect everyone's time, keep comments brief, and do not interrupt others. The way that this meeting is going to work is that we're going to break into our small groups, have small group discussions, and then afterwards, each group, as we group ourselves into tables, will have 1 minute to report back and to speak to the larger group. We want to make sure that everybody's heard. We're a very large crowd tonight, so we're going to try to facilitate as best as we can. We're going to keep track of time, and we're going to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. Like I said, there's floaters around. You'll see us walking around. If you want to speak to one of us individually, please call us, raise your hand, and let us know. So with that, I'm going to introduce the supervisor, and we're going to get started.
I would like to start off by talking about something that isn't easy, and that is failure. I want to acknowledge that the 210 plus people who are living currently along the Rodota Trail are a just huge, gigantic symbol of failure. They're a symbol of government failure at the local level, including the County of Sonoma, including the City of Santa Rosa, including other cities within the County of Sonoma. They're a symbol of failure at the state level. They're a symbol of failure at the federal level. They're a symbol of failure of law enforcement agencies, of social service organizations, of faith-based organizations, of society. We all have a part and a piece of that failure, and I want to own my piece as an elected representative who is working hard, but we need to do more in order to address this encampment. So, on that note of government failure, I would like everyone who is here from government to raise their hands. Thank you very much. And I would like to actually specifically acknowledge, we have Mayor Tom Schwedhelm who's sitting over there. And this has been a challenging issue on a number of reasons, but he is here to listen and he is here to work in partnership with the County of Sonoma because we have a shared jurisdiction here. I want to briefly talk about what keeps me up at night in terms of the failure of this encampment. Number one, it's a failure for the folks who are living there. I don't know if you have heard, but some of the residents there have trench foot, which is a condition that is completely preventable and was last sort of heard of in World War I, because people can't get dry, because people can't get clean, because they can't have dry socks. And that is a humanitarian failure and a crisis. I have also heard from neighbors that we are failing to keep our neighborhoods safe, and that rather than having a thriving community where children can bicycle down the road and where people can walk down the road without feeling fearful, that I actually have constituents who are purchasing firearms and sleeping with them because they are scared in their homes. And that is also a failure that we need to address and acknowledge. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the failure that we have to keep the trail open and safe for cyclists and pedestrians who would like to walk along the trail, and that something that used to be an asset has unfortunately turned into a liability. But here's the thing about failure, right? There are two ways that you can react to failure. Everyone faces failure in life at some point. Either you can feel despair, you can feel like I'm just gonna burn it all down, I give up, Or you can see that failure as, quite frankly, sort of fuel in the gas tank of your car to drive you harder and faster and further towards solutions. And I am really excited that there are a number of people in the community, as well as in government, who are driving very quickly and very fast towards solutions, and in partnership between the City of Santa Rosa and the County of Sonoma. Now, I've actually been meeting with the City of Santa Rosa. Our first meeting between myself and Mayor Schwedhelm and Supervisor Susan Gorin, who is now the chair of the Board of Supervisors, was actually in early October. That feels like a very, very long time ago. We've obviously had a major fire since then. And before I kind of advance on the timeline of what the county is doing right now, I do want to mention something that's unusual about this trail and this encampment, right? It is on county-owned property inside city limits, which actually makes it shared jurisdiction. Santa Rosa Police Department, as the law enforcement agency, is the one who responds to concerns in this area, right? And yet it's owned by the County of Sonoma, which makes it a little bit of a complicated situation. The other challenge is that we are currently under a court injunction from a settlement that also is actually the City of Santa Rosa is party to, which means that before we move forward with closing down any encampment, we actually are mandated to offer a suite of solutions to the folks who are living there, right? We cannot just go and arrest someone for being on public property. We need to provide them with an alternative location and an alternative place to go. So we need to step it up, and we need to provide those solutions. And I am proud to say that the County of Sonoma, in December, allocated nearly $12 million for a suite of urgent solutions. We are going to be standing up 2 outdoor shelters. We have allocated 15 detox and rehab beds. We are hiring 7 staff to be hardcore caseworkers to go out there and meet the folks along the trail and to actually give them individual housing assessments and provide solutions that work for them. We are also moving forward with purchasing congregate housing, which is a model that is actually in effect all throughout the county. People are kind of surprised, I think, to learn that we actually do purchase homes for homeless people in Sonoma County. We've actually been doing this for years very successfully, and we've gotten a number of folks off the street and into 4 walls with a roof over their head and gotten them back on their feet. And then sometimes they actually then move on to apartments or homes of their own once they're stabilized, once they can sort of get themselves together and be treated like human beings again. We are also moving forward with master leasing and actually getting a number of apartment units that we will then also be able to lease to some of the homeless folks on the trail. And finally, I want you to know that the commitment from the County of Sonoma is to clear the trail and have it functioning again by the end of the month, which means that we will be out there every single day providing solutions to ensure that every single person on the Rodota Trail has somewhere else to go that is safe and secure. So that is a very sort of short version of what we are doing at the County of Sonoma. Oh, and the last thing that I wanted to mention is that we have been through more than our share of disasters in Sonoma County. Since I've been on the board, only 3 years, we've been through 2 floods and 2 fires and had smoke in the skies in between. And this is actually the first time, as I understand it, in the history of the county government that we have actually stood up our Emergency Operations Center to address a man-made humanitarian crisis. And so we have staff working from across the departments to come up with solutions in order to clear the trail by the end of the month, but to do it in a way that is humane and dignified and treats the residents with respect and gives them an alternative place to go and gives them the help that they need. So that is what we are moving forward with. And with that, this is really going to be about listening to you. Unfortunately, since there are so many of you, the best way for us to do that is to actually have you work in small groups. We will be floating around. We will be compiling all of the information, all of the frustrations, all of the solutions, all of the suggestions that you have here tonight. And we will be posting that publicly on our website, and we will also be having that actually inform the conversation before the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday as we vote to actually approve some of the actions that I was describing earlier. So I want to make sure that your voice is not just heard in these halls tonight, but that it's actually heard in the board chambers on Tuesday, and that it's actually posted publicly for everyone to see so that we can all be held accountable to your frustrations and also to your solutions and your suggestions, right? And I'm happy to have another town hall meeting, whether that's in a month, whether that's in 2 months, to say, how is it going? To check in, to see if we've actually kept our promises, and to see if some of your frustrations have actually gone away because we've actually been able to work together on some really great creative solutions. And with that, I believe I will be turning it back to our fantastic facilitator, and I will be floating around and available after the meeting as well.
Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start our small group discussion. So please find a home. We have facilitators. Facilitators, can you please raise your hands so that people know where you are? Stand up. So please join a small group discussion with the facilitators. We'll be floating around too, and we'll do this for 15 minutes so that we have time afterwards to share our thoughts together collectively. Thank you. All right, everyone. We're going to start going to each table in group and share. So if I could have everybody's attention, please, so that we can all hear what others have to say. I want to thank all of you for being so understanding and flexible. I want to thank the people in the back who created groups on their own and just circled up. And we're going to start going table to table to hear people out. So could I have everybody's attention, please? Everybody, please find a place. Let us know if you need a chair. So the way that we're going to do this is that we're going to go table to table or group to group and ask everybody to share a question, an insight, a concern for 1 minute. So you all had a wonderful discussion. You all took a lot of great notes. Thank you for the facilitators that stepped up and volunteered. Really appreciate it. And we're going to capture everything that's being said. So if everybody's ready, we are going to get started. And like I said, we're going to go group to group, table to table. Everybody will have 1 minute to share. And then we'll go through and then we'll do Q&A. All right, so let's listen to our first group.
Hello, testing, testing. So can everybody hear me? Perfect. Okay, so our group here had many advocates for the homeless as well as people who live on the Casa del Sol condominiums. And our biggest concerns were, why has nothing been done yet? We have one lady here with Homeless Action who's been going to meetings for 2.5 years and nothing has been done so far. That is a major concern of our table here. Another one is that there's lots of talk, but again, not much is done until we're now in this crisis mode. So why wasn't the government more proactive earlier on, right? Thank you. So in terms of solutions, one question asked was, what about the emergency facilities that we used during the fires? Don't we have those resources available and the campground and some of those trailers that we can use, such as the FEMA trailers? Another question is, how will we prevent a return? Oh. Ice cream. Oh, and then our final question is, why aren't all the supervisors here and why aren't all the city council members here? They should all be here listening to us.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Sounds good. All right, either one, yeah. All right. So to start, whoa, all right, way down here. All right, to start off with our concerns, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Perfect. To start off with our concerns were drug problems and theft. Our current situation seems short-term. I need to read it too. Homeowners and renters are going to leave Sonoma County if this persists. Exactly. And that maybe any solution might attract more homeless people. That was, just specific to us. Our homeless problem defines Santa Rosa. Our safety for family and children. People need to be held accountable. Toxic to the larger community, as seen next door and all around. And especially our property values will go down as affecting our larger community. But the solutions that we can see is a Hopkins solution. Yes. All right, thank you. We have a time-limited semi-sanctioned camp, so something that's only for a certain amount of time and not just a long-term permanent camp. Yeah? Oh, that sounds good. All right. You can read the rest of it if you like.
So I'm just gonna ask, okay, everyone can probably hear me. I'm gonna ask that people please speak directly to the microphone because we wanna make sure that everybody can hear all the way back here. And keep it to 1 minute so that we can hear from everybody, please. We'll keep the posters up in case people wanna see them afterwards, but we wanna really listen and hear from everybody. So I ask that we follow our guidelines as well. And also, please, let's not interrupt the person who's speaking and honor our community agreements. Thank you.
So a lot of us at this table, these are our issues, which share with everybody. Something that wasn't brought up was law enforcement, as far as they have a lot more deeper issues, and they're being drawn away for this and drawn away from the communities, what their primary job is. Also, the delay in this, nothing we can do about the delay, but we need to do something now. End of the month has been, even last month, was something that was said, and that's still there. So one of our concerns is that how many people on the trail don't want help, and what to do with those type of people. Also, we've talked about the trail being used for what it's supposed to be: cycling, running. It's a way. It's a safe way to go, and now people are having to go on other roads around that aren't as safe. Stony Point, people get hit all the time on Stony Point, and now we're forced to go around it. So one of the things is we weren't sure what percentage, like older disabled individuals appear to be in the homeless. I think it almost needs to be broken down in kind of groups. That's pretty much it.
Most of us at our table are homeowners in the neighborhood next to the trail. And our concerns, like many others, are property values, possibly having our property taxes reassessed for the next 6 months because we can't sell our home in that neighborhood if we want to leave. The safety, our children, I have 2 little ones. We can't walk on the trail. We have to get in our car and drive to another part of the trail to use it. Erratic behavior of people coming from the trail, personal experience. I see somebody all the time coming in, looking at cars. He has a family member of someone in the neighborhood, mentally ill. He's on meth. They have a restraining order against him, and he's still in the neighborhood. Rodents, the mental health aspect, not having enough services in our county to help these people. Sanitation, the fact that freedom and toxic smells from the fires, the warming fires that are happening that we can smell. I smell burning garbage every night in my yard. And also just our freedom. I'm scared to walk in my neighborhood. And not that homeless people are scary, but drugs are scary. Mental health that is unmedicated is scary. Our another concern, homeless rights. Our homeowners' rights, we feel like have been taken away to an extent. The influx of homeless from other counties, pushback from trail residents who choose the lifestyle and they don't want to leave, how to give them a better life. And then, like I said, many of the other issues that were talked about.
Hi. So we talked about a lot of stuff. First thing, Gavin Newsom just announced that he has $12 billion, and the city and the county should get their share. for homeless services. Another big thing we talked about is that we need to diversify where the homeless are. Why is this only Santa Rosa's problem? Whereas Windsor, Petaluma, Roanoke Park, Sebastopol, these people are coming from those places too, and they need to take their share. Services need to be offered there, and people need to be placed there. Related, the city needs to care about Roseland more. You don't see a homeless encampment happening in Fountain Grove. It happens here. We need to aggressively look into vacant land and vacant businesses and use those spaces for people to camp. Someone mentioned parking garages that are empty at night, tiny homes on land. We need to aggressively pursue all the options because we need all the solutions. Some of the places that were mentioned, there's an empty lot next to Great Casino, Sonoma Development Center, Fircrest Nursing Home in Sebastopol. PG&E had a whole bunch of trailers out, and I think they owe us, so maybe we can use that land in their trailers.
Thank you.
What else?
Thank
What
you.
else about-
Okay, well, I'm speaking for the trail residents and the volunteers that are on the trail, so we have a different perspective. So the concerns for the people who are on the trail is, well, one, obviously their well-being in winter. I think they've gone through some really hard times with the weather. That they're really people who are forgotten. They were once your babies, they were once your little kids, they were once your adolescents, and they're part of our family. And they aren't being treated as human beings. A lot of the people on the trail can't even leave to get their Social Security or go for any kinds of services because their things may be stolen. So there's no security on the trail, both personally and for property. Residents are also being misrepresented by others' behavior, and I think that if you haven't been on the trail, you should go on the trail and talk to some of the residents there. I have to, okay, wrap up. Ultimately, the people on the trail are being criminalized and dehumanized and not valued. And what happens on January 31st because our solutions aren't taking into account 214 people to find housing for them?
I'm Lisa. I'm with the group called CAN. I am also with all my family that's here from around the trail. We grew up here, third generation, right on Stony Point and Roseland area. So the big concern was unanimous at our table was the money spent with no efficacy or very little negligible efficacy and no transparency of how those dollars actually worked. Were they mitigating the problem? Our second big thing was safety. Many off-leash dogs, many attributed to people that were campers and camping in parks and all of that. Theft was number 2 for our safety concerns. Bicyclists coming from the trail not engaging in the rules of the road by any stretch. The safety of the homeless. If they need help with drugs, mental health, running water, no sanitation. The problem with aggressive panhandling. I myself have had to save many little old ladies at shopping centers from aggressive panhandlers. The rodent infestation. The addicts leaving biomedical waste on playgrounds and every other place where people sit and go on swings and all of that. Okay, somebody asked, I want to make sure they get their point out, what about the proposal that they made for the fairgrounds? Was that a solution? And how are we handling our new waves of incoming homeless? And I know that we have them because I clean all the creeks and I talk with them. And many are not from here and drift in.
Thank you.
All right, so our table had a mix of people from around the county and from a lot of different backgrounds. Our concerns had to do with the fact that there's a certain population of which our person from CDC says is right around 20% that will not take services. They're chronically homeless. Okay, to correct that. But we are concerned about the population that has openly said they don't want services and are happy living outside. They consider that freedom. We're concerned about the increasing number of people on the trail, that things are clearly not getting better, they're increasing. We're concerned about the fact that funding is going towards a very small number of the overall population of homeless in the county. We're concerned about crime and general lawlessness, very concerned about the impact on the public right-of-way and the impact on business owners, private property. We do think that it would be a good idea for government to be part of the solution by using government-owned property instead of public asset property to deal with some of this.
Are we on? First of all, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins, for hosting this meeting. It is very much appreciated. I don't know where all the other city council and supervisors are, but Chris Corsi, who is the candidate for 3rd District Supervisor, is here, and I'd like to introduce Chris. Thank you. We had questions and concepts. How will all this happen by the end of January? We didn't quite see. We talked a lot about safe, sanctioned campgrounds on government property. What about the fairgrounds? But the question comes up, will it become permanent and a tax obligation for the community? The concept of keeping the toilets after this issue is resolved for the public at large was put on the table. The question of what is the success rate for stability? What is it about transition? What is the game plan? We totally realize that Director Robinson's plate is going to be full, but it's very important to work individually. There will still be a bed shortage. We talked about more churches, more conversions of trailers, more conversions of alternative shelters to be used, some issues around zoning laws. Someone brought up why not a 1/4-cent tax for mental health and homeless rather than SMART, but we didn't go there. And finally, in the very end, we do not want this to separate us as a community. We want to be complete as a community and not separated by the issue of homelessness.
Thank you very much.
Is this on now? Yes, it is. The next meeting, I would hope that the public could actually ask our supervisor personally the questions. Because this meeting is about and by and for her, not for us. And regardless of what our opinions are, we should have the possibility of asking her the questions. She works for us. We pay you. There has not been a single question asked of our supervisor at this point. What's happened there, I'm not going to go into now. We all know. Our question from our table, since I'm respecting the arrangements we made, which we've asked the supervisor at least 12 times and she's never answered, is how many people from a homeless encampment are near where she lives? How far away? How many? And the question is, how many will she accept and how far away? This is a tale of two cities, where we live here and we have 500 people being occupied, and she has not answered yet. Thank you.
And so our table had a couple of issues that they raised. They've asked me to speak for them. The top issues are safety, primarily around kids and homeowners, but also related to crime and making sure that sex offenders or human trafficking or other issues with drug use are taken care of. They had a lot of concerns related to the cost to the city, to the cost to the county of the different programs, but also the cost to the property owners and homeowners who live in the area. Drug use came up a lot as a concern that was raised. Again, the needles, enforcement by law enforcement, and then a concept of enabling was discussed quite a bit. And then crime, yes, crime related to enforcing the rules. And so it was really important to this table to enforce the rules, enforce the law, and make sure that there was that kind of effort.
Okay, so our table focused a lot of similar themes that we've already heard, but one of the main things was doing some direct engagement with the people who are actually living out there on the trail. And one phrase is "nothing about me without me." That came up. We want to know who's out there. What's the demographic? Are there children? Are there singles? Are there families? And for the purpose of asking them directly, what solutions do you have and what do you want? What do you want and need? And then a second part of that same getting the data together was, how about the county do a better job of communicating who's out there so that there's a little bit of understanding? There's some sympathy at the table for the people who have mental health issues. A repeat from this last table about those who have drug problems and trying to address some of those. And just a full recognition that people are some of the people out there are downtrodden and just simply need help, in particularly for mental health issues. Another topic was just a concern about the county becoming a haven for people who, are homeless and want to come to Sonoma County.
Sure. Hi. So I think a lot of this has already been addressed by other groups. Thank you. We would like a firm date for when the trail will be cleared, not a nebulous time frame. We'd like to see efforts to decrease the growth of the trail. As I understand, there were 205 people on the trail at the Board of Supervisors meeting on December 23rd. And that $11.8 million that they guaranteed to that problem was for 205 people. So what happens as the numbers increase? We would like to see budget dedicated to a larger number of the homeless in Sonoma County. We want to know, what if the trail occupants don't want to go? We want to really address lawlessness and safety concerns, and to know, are we enabling the homeless or helping them? Another thing that's really concerning is that we haven't seen any metrics for success. How are we going to measure if this is working? What are the benchmarks, and when do they get reported on?
Our table was representative. There were neighbors of the trail and others. In addition to everything that's been said, I think one overarching theme from our table was that there has to be a humane solution that involves the community at large, the residents of the trail, and other homeless throughout the county, government, social services, volunteers. Mental health services was a concern. The ranting and the screaming in the middle of the night for the neighbors on the Rodota Trail. Another part of the solution that they talked about was it's very important to make any solution where you house the homeless a community. It's not putting them in a parking lot. It's really giving them a space that they can be proud of, that they have open space next to. Okay.
Hi, so I think a decent summary of what we came up with is that we're concerned about how those on top are handling things, not necessarily how those who are being subjected to living outdoors are handling things. So we're concerned that there hasn't been enough education about homeless facts. There might be some dry facts out there, but we need to know why the shelters are not adequate for people. We need to know why people aren't getting the things that they need and what they need on the trails or anywhere that they're living outside. The focus should be on those suffering from lack of housing and lack of homes. Those are two separate things. Some people have houses but not homes. Some people have homes but not houses. A bunch of which were just evicted from Challenger Way, by the way. The people who have homes but not houses. So, so the other thing that we need is to really empower people by we need to understand and operate with social capital, meaning people need mutual reciprocal relationships. They need to feel that their community cares about them, something that I think this meeting's failing at doing quite a lot. And they need to feel a part of something larger than themselves that they can contribute to and be a part of.
Okay, our group came up with a few things. I teach in this area. I taught at LC Allen for 19 years, and now I'm at Santa Rosa High. The big one for me, personally, is safety for my children. I have 2 small kids, and we've seen a lot of needles, sex in parks, can't go down the trail anymore. My property values dropped in my house. Even if I do want to move, I can't. Some of the people at the table said no confidence in government or what we have here in the county. Also enabling, are we enabling them? Or there's a lot of multifaceted things to this. Where are the needles coming from that they're getting? Where, if they're able to deposit them, where are they getting them from? Are we encouraging bad behavior? This is becoming the new normal for us in Sonoma County now, with the homeless issue that's happening. One of the things I brought up too is if there's something within the county, like why is this all here? Everything's in Roseland, West area, and why isn't this somewhere else? Why isn't this in other cities besides here?
So my name is Alan Thomas, and I'm a resident of Santa Rosa. And the first thing that that our table kind of came up with before I get into a lot of the details is originally this is a District 5 issue, the Joe Rodota Trail. But we're in District 3 right now. Why are we in District 3? I want to ask the supervisor why she's holding a meeting for a District 5 problem in Santa Rosa, kind of to follow up. District 3 is always bearing the brunt of all these services. So to keep going here, the thing that we're really concerned about at this table is law enforcement, existing ordinances, making sure that everyone is treated fairly. We want a balanced approach, no unequal protection under the law. The residents and the people on the trail or the people on the doorsteps should not be given preferential treatment. And volunteers, the volunteers that seem to be leading this train, we don't know their experience. They don't seem to have any experience. So we like to ask the supervisors who's talking to them and what experience do they have. Thank you.
Our table had several questions. The first one was, what sort of survey is being done as people come in? Do they have criminal records? Where are they coming from? What are their ages? We'd like to know more about who they are, what their needs are, and where they're coming from. Second question that came up is the environmental impact. How is this affecting the watersheds? How is the trail going to be cleaned up once it's closed? Is the area going to be fumigated or cleaned? How is that going to be affecting our health and safety?
I know, okay, here we go. Please be mindful of the community agreements. We're doing great. Everybody's having an opportunity to speak. Let's be respectful. I'm trying to keep track of time, but I know that we've used more than 1 minute, and I really want to honor your time. But please be respectful so that we can get through it, and then we can go straight to the Q&A. Thank you.
So that I've been asked to repeat, how will the trail be cleaned so that the environmental impacts and the health impacts are mitigated once the encampment moves on? The third question is, what will happen if they refuse to move? And there were multiple suggestions given in terms of what were suitable solutions. Far away from neighborhoods, but also having plenty of services. How do we help people move along?
We discussed many of the same things that we've heard from the tables. We have a slightly different perspective. The Joe Rodota Trail has become very visible, but many of us at this table are from the West End and from the St. Rose historic districts, and this has been our normal for many years. We have the preponderance of the homeless service providers in our neighborhood. We've got the Homeless Service Center, the Catholic Charities Family Shelter, the Rescue Mission, the St. Vincent's Soup Kitchen. They've been there for years. They're a magnet. They bring it all into our neighborhood. We don't think that it's fair or good for any of our community members that all of these services get concentrated in one location, in one small area. We also think that there needs to be fiscal responsibility for the monies that are going to be spent, and there was a suggestion that a community advisory board that includes community members.
Good evening. I'm going to hold this to 60 seconds. Go. I'm going to try and summarize the 2 pages that we came up with here. I'm just going to hit on a few of the bullet points just to highlight some of the big items that came up. There was a very strong reaction when the idea of keeping our public spaces safe. That seems to be one of the largest concerns, and it had a strong response at this table. Along with that was this idea of housing first and potentially using the county hospital in Chenate to get people off the street and then start processing them through the system to find out what services they need. That seemed to be a big idea on the table. Other things that came up were who are the occupants on the trail? If we abide by this injunction, are we just encouraging law breaking? Are we attracting a larger population with all these services? How many can we as a city and county actually afford versus how many are coming? That's a big concern. Don't replicate the failure of other cities. And that's my final point. Thank you.
Hello? Well, at our table, of course, a lot of this has already been hashed out. As far as health issues, we've had propane explosions, fires. We've had rodent infestation. We've had public safety problems, cars breaking in. I mean, our community used to be a wonderful place to live. And most of us are from up right by the trail, and we do not feel safe. And it is your responsibility to make us safe. We should not. I would encourage, this is the big thing. How about all you supervisors come live in our shoes for a month? Let's see if you can do that. You wouldn't like it either. Roseland has been a dumping ground for all the homeless problems that are the whole of Santa Rosa. And you have not represented our area at all. Roseland has got such a horrible name, people do not want to live here.
Please be respectful. Please be respectful. Please be respectful. I really encourage all of you to please be respectful of one another and be kind. We will have to escort people out of the meeting if you cannot hold it together. All right, we're doing great. Everybody's being heard. We're almost done. If we want to get to any point whatsoever tonight to have a Q&A session with the people that are here, we need to act like adults. So I encourage all of you to honor our community agreements. Please, if you do not feel comfortable right now, please walk away or we will escort you out of the meeting. Thank you. We're almost there. Let's do this, people.
Hi, my name's Alora Odell, and I live off the trail. And so what I'm going to say here isn't necessarily all my views. Is this kind of feedback, a little bit of feedback? Okay, so our group consisted of neighbors, Catholic Charities, a cyclist, the Methodist Church, a local one, and Sonoma County Acts of Kindness. So the primary concerns, and many that were here, have been said: the pest control, public health, root causes, housing, mental health issues, the conditions and health and well-being of homeless, humanitarian, safety of all, drugs, property value, over-concentration. What I personally like to say is I'm more concerned about human beings than my property price. My house is over here. And I just hope that no one here ever has a child that grows up and has a mental health issue or has a drug issue of addictions. Because I pretty much know that 90% of people do have mental health issues, and some are broader than others.
Good evening, everyone. I am Susan Gore, and I'm chair of the Board of Supervisors, former mayor from Santa Rosa. Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to assure you that I am in here listening to all of you tonight. And the other supervisors and I will be part of the decision-making process, not only on Tuesday, but for the long haul. So I want to know that I'm listening very carefully to you. I'm the facilitator of the small group over here of folks composed from the Roseland neighborhood, as well as other parts of Santa Rosa, a recent transplant from Orlando. Yes, they do have homeless issues in Orlando. And the youngest member of our community and her mom. And I want to thank you for being part of the conversation. You are who we're talking about. So I understand you've experienced homelessness. So we went through many of the points that you all have made: the lack of safety, your feeling of insecurity, the dangerous conditions on the trail, and extending off of the trail, because we had people here living a couple blocks away also feeling insecure. But people noted that it's not just the homeless on the trail. They notice homeless in lots of different places, camping in RVs throughout the neighborhoods, and there are RV camping all over the county. And we really focused on solutions, and we absolutely resonate with some of the points that you made. What we're looking for are solutions distributed throughout the county, not just in Santa Rosa, because I represent areas in Sonoma Valley that also experience homelessness under the bridge and provided by the service provider. So I think that's sort of summing up our points, but we did talk about the fact that there are many, many reasons contributing to the homeless challenges that we see today that we've been working on for a decade or more.
We are going to move on to have a question and answer session now. I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 7:30. We are going to spend 10 to 15 minutes. We have some answers. We're also committing to provide some of the notes and the questions and the concerns that were raised here tonight. We have taken notes. If there's anything that's missing, if you need to say anything, you know who to talk to. I'm right here, but we're going to pass on the mic so that we can get some answers.
So I didn't get every single question that was asked, but I was taking notes throughout the group presentations and wanted to share a little bit of information in response to some of the suggestions. We do have all of the papers that we will be summarizing, and any questions that we don't get the opportunity to answer tonight, we will absolutely post the answers on our website in the future so that you all have access to that information after this meeting. I did want to respond to a couple of the really great suggestions that I heard come out of some of the tables. It was great to hear some creative solutions. Things like diversity of locations, that is critical. We are absolutely looking to make sure that we are not just continuing to burden certain overburdened areas with some of the solutions that we are talking about to homelessness. So we are actually looking at a suite of solutions all around the county and not just in Western Santa Rosa. And I want to validate the frustration of the Western Santa Rosa residents who feel as though they are constantly sort of getting the short end of the stick. And the fact is that I am the only supervisor on the Board of Supervisors who has had not one, but two major homeless encampments in my district of over 100 people. And the last one actually was right out here in the parking lot. Who remembers that? The last time I had a meeting on homelessness in this facility was regarding another significant homeless encampment. So we really need to wrap our arms around Santa Rosa and make Western Santa Rosa in particular and make sure that people feel safe and that we can find solutions that are geographically equitable rather than sort of concentrating things on the west side. I also wanted to mention that people suggested government-owned property. That is what we will be considering on Tuesday. We are looking at both the county campus as well as Los Gilicos for sites for a potential alternative camping location. So that is government-owned property. It is a time-limited encampment, which was also suggested. And there was also a suggestion for trailers or other creative structures. We have actually already ordered 30 small creative structures that are kind of like hard tents that you can, move around on a pallet, that you can actually hose out, that you can transfer to new locations. And we are also in discussion with a number of local organizations, including actually Miguel Elliott, who's got his Cobb portable house outside, and as well as the Squeaky Wheel Bike Coalition, who has a proposal to produce locally small units for about, I think it was $3,000, $3,500 per unit. That is a cost-effective, affordable solution that could provide a little bit of dignity to an encampment location somewhere. I also wanted to talk about, there was an accusation of a nebulous date. I did say that the trail will be cleared by the end of the month. That is not a nebulous date. I believe there are 31 days in January. That makes January 31st. So I don't think that that is nebulous, and I hope that you all hear that publicly stated, that commitment today. I also wanted to mention there were some great feedback about metrics for success. We are tracking that. Metrics for success don't just involve placement into housing, right? Because you could put someone in housing, they wind up on the street 30 days later, that is not success. So our metrics for success are actually placement and staying in that housing. We also are defining success as the number of folks that we are able to get treatment. If they, for instance, are suffering and struggling with addiction, we do now have rehab and detox facility beds that were funded by the Board of Supervisors action in December. So that will also be a metric for success, is getting people into programs and getting them cleaned up and getting off the streets. That is absolutely the goal. I would like to hand this over to our Director of Health Services and Interim CDC Director, Barbie Robinson, to discuss a little bit more specifically the trail outreach that is ongoing. We have actually started deploying intensive assessments as of January 8th, and she's going to let you know what that looks like and what the efforts are each and every day out on the trail.
Good evening. Good evening. Starting on January, with all due respect, and I hear you. Good evening. We have began a very robust effort to reach out to every individual on the trail and provide intensive care and case management for those folks living on the trail. What it requires is for us to really understand each individual and their individual needs in order to support them, build a relationship with them, and identify the appropriate resources to support them in getting them into the continuum of housing. There are people who are ready right now to come in off the trail, and we want to make sure that we're finding and identifying the appropriate resources to bring them in off the trail. There are others that are not necessarily ready to come in the trail, come off of the trail, but we know that we need to restore the trail to its intended purpose, and our goal is to bring those individuals into a temporary shelter and wrap around intensive services and resources and supports to meet them where they're at in order for them to eventually get into the housing system. And we believe that the temporary shelter site that we're standing up and ultimately the 2 other permanent sites are really going to meet people where they are and allow us to respond to not just the encampment here on the JRT. We do not want to continue to just move people around the county. I recognize and empathize with the challenges that you all have experienced. We really want to have a systemic approach that is going to allow us to get people stabilized and be successfully housed. That is not going to happen by just building shelters around the county or pushing people around the county. That is not the solution we want. That is not who we are. I believe that the humanitarian response is for us to look at the public health challenges, the mental health challenges, meet people where they are and get them into services. And that is what we are intensively working on right now with the teams that are now going out. They have clinical backgrounds. They're able to engage folks. They're able to identify who has some major challenges right now that are severely vulnerable, get them into the system with the supports and resources that they need.
Thank you very much, Director Robinson. And I also wanted to acknowledge, because I hadn't seen my colleague on the board and the current chair of the board, Supervisor Gorin, which is really wonderful that she is here. And she has been working tirelessly with me and with Mayor Schwedhelm on the Home Leadership Council. There was also a question regarding citizen engagement and citizen oversight over the decisions that are being made around homelessness in Sonoma County. That is actually happening, and I would love to have you participate. We are part of the Continuum of Care Board, which is known as the Home Leadership Council. It includes Supervisor Susan Gorin, Mayor Schwedhelm, Rebecca Samet, who also is actually here with us tonight, as well as other service providers, and hopefully a new appointee from the Santa Rosa City Council shortly. I also wanted to acknowledge that at present, Western Santa Rosa does not have locally elected city council members because those 2 districts will be up for election in November of 2020. However, there are multiple at-large council members who are representing the entire city of Santa Rosa, including Western Santa Rosa, and there are actually 2 of them, or maybe 3 in attendance here tonight. We have Councilmember Rogers, I saw Councilmember Dowd, and I also saw Councilmember Tibbetts. Is Tibbetts at large? There we go. And are you at large or are you a district now? At large. So they all are here to represent your interests, and I would encourage having conversations with all of us because this is a shared jurisdiction. It is a shared problem, and we do need to work on this together. I am going to hand it off to our Director of Regional Parks, Bert Whitaker, to discuss there was questions about the post-encampment clearing. He is also familiar with the services that are currently being provided on the trail and could share a little bit about trash pickup and the efforts that they have made. And additionally, I will also allow any of the other elected members to actually also speak. If any of the council members or any of my colleague on the Board of Supervisors. So here is Director of Regional Parks, Bert Whitaker.
Thank you. So just the question came up regarding how will the trail be restored and sort of what are the timelines. So essentially we expect, as Supervisor Hopkins just pointed out, by the end of January, we'll immediately get in there to remove hazardous materials, to restore recyclables, remove all the waste along the trail, restore many of the drainage features and grading that has been changed out there. Seriously, that will take probably 2 to 3 weeks is what we're expecting. Hopefully we can have public back on the trail by the end of February, early March. Following that, certainly we will be increasing patrols, working hand in hand with park rangers and Santa Rosa police officers, as well as looking at a number of immediate and longer term trail enhancements to really maximize the recreational use and the value of that trail to everyone. It is a beloved feature of our county. county and of the city of Santa Rosa, and we respect that and want to actually see this trail come out with a bright future. So thank you.
And now I would like to invite any of the other elected officials, if Mayor Schwedhelm or Councilmember Rogers or Tibbetts would like to speak, if they want to say anything in their roles.
You know, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and the reason you see the council members here and the Board of Supervisors here is that we are interested in ending homelessness in Sonoma County, and we're not going to do it tomorrow. It takes all of us working together, as Supervisor Hopkins mentioned. There's no magic bullet here where we could just do this and we'll eventually get immediately to functional zero. So we are listening to you, and what's interesting, the city of Santa Rosa has its own strategy for dealing with our encampments because the JRT is not the only one within the jurisdictional limits of the city of Santa Rosa. And so we're having our process. And when you get multiple jurisdictions, we're trying to blend the two. But we are talking, we're here to help, and we're here to listen. And that's what I'm really want to impart upon everyone here. If you have some solutions, talk to us. Believe me, this is a very complex issue, and we've been working on this nonstop. And I know Lyndon mentioned our first meeting was in October. We've been meeting on this for many, many, many months. And again, we have the city of Santa Rosa's own policy, and I'm more than happy to share with you those specific strategies. We also have some staff here, Dave Gwine, who is our Director of Housing and Community Services. We're more than happy to share what our strategies are working with the county. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you. It was a good interchange of conversation here tonight, a lot of perspectives. I know, Mr. Keel, you and a couple of other folks are angry. I get it. You have a perspective. Please be patient and be kind and respectful to the electeds here, to the neighbors, to the advocates. We are democracy. We are the fabric of community. We all care in different ways. So thank you for being respectful. This has been a really, really difficult issue for all of us for a decade or more. And I appreciate the folks from the West End neighborhood being here because I worked with you as mayor. I get it. You've absorbed a lot of the impacts over the years. But I just had a conversation with a city manager from Sonoma, also struggling with the same issues in Sonoma. River area, struggling with the same issues. North County, COTS from Petaluma, the homeless issues down there. So I think that that's my message. It's going to take a while for all of us to move forward with the solutions. We are committed, we are focused, we are determined, and we're absolutely receptive to all kinds of creative ideas. Rather than being angry, let's be kind. Let's talk about what solutions you want to see. I think all of the supervisors really want to hear from you about solutions. So thank you. We may have some more questions coming up. I think there's a gentleman here that had a question. Oh, Councilmember Tibbetts, and then we'll answer some questions. So please be patient.
Thank you. All right, and this is Councilmember Tibbetts, who is also with St. Vincent de Paul, the Executive Director.
Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. I was told that there's no such thing as a bad short speech, so I'll keep this really brief, but I do want to say that I get to serve two roles in this community. First, that's as a city councilman for the city of Santa Rosa. Second, it's as the Executive Director of an organization that deals with this population on a day-to-day basis. And I want to say to you that on both fronts, your electeds and your service providers are working as hard as we can. And I will tell you, not as an elected, but as a service provider, watching the county make this big of an investment in this issue, I believe will yield results. And I just want to say that it does take a positive attitude. I know that there's anger and frustration in this room. I'm, as a citizen, frustrated too when I drive by the Joe Rodota Trail and other places that are all over this county. But I want you to know that I'm going to work hard for you, and I know that the people up here are going to work hard for you, and we now have the money to make a difference.
So we're going to move on to a Q&A session because I know we want answers to our questions. So the way we're going to do this is that we're going to ask you to raise your hand if you have a question. We're going to ask you to be extremely respectful of the time. It's 7:45. So if you can ask your question, get an answer, and we can move on. Please keep it to 1 minute.
I just have a comment. It's one.
Let's do questions so that everybody has a question. Is that okay? Let's try questions first.
Hello, my name is Nicole. I live on the Rodota Trail. My question to the council members, and I think this is great, by the way, that everybody's trying to come together and get something done. But all I'm really hearing, honey, is that on the 31st, if you haven't given us someplace else to be, are we going to be hunted again? Just shut my
So the question will be asked, and then there'll be a short answer. We want questions, please, so that we can get to everybody's hands. I'm coming around the microphone. I'm right here. I'm going to hold on to the microphone because I really want to get us through this portion.
So we had a question, so I think we should answer that, right?
Yes.
So the question was that Nicole lives on the Rodota Trail and is asking what will happen on the 31st. And basically, I think the question was, will there be a place for you to go? And so I will hand this to Director Robinson, just to talk a little bit about the services that will be offered and the suite of solutions that we are presenting to the residents of the Rodota Trail.
We have to respect our community agreements. I will be asking people to be escorted out if we can get through this section. I promised that we were going to have a Q&A session. That's what we're going to do. So please be patient, be kind, and respect others.
Yes, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we were just about to answer the question, right? Thank you. Yeah.
So the question was regarding services and resources and supports. As you all know, the Board of Supervisors approved investment in permanent supportive housing, master leases, as well as resources to bring people into primary care services. There's an array of services around disease control, testing, and treatment for folks. Treatment beds, we want to have individuals build a relationship with our care team who are adept and skilled. They've been doing this work throughout the county, and now we're bringing them to respond to building relationships and getting folks into services that are on the trail. And so, again, that's a myriad of services. It's not a matter of if you build the housing or if you build the shelter, people will come. You have to bring the resources and the supports necessary in order for people to be successfully housed.
Yes, I'd like to ask how are residents of the Southwest area and those of us who live in direct proximity to this problem being represented? I mean, I'm wondering if there can be some, if there's some way that residents can be included in these decisions that are being made about the trail, and our input can be directly, heard by the supervisors and county government.
Absolutely. And that was really one of the main goals of this meeting, and that's why we specifically held it in Southwest Santa Rosa, so that it would be easy for the neighborhood residents to actually come here and be here tonight. And that's why we also held it at night. I want to apologize. Our Board of Supervisors has traditionally always met on Tuesdays during the day, and so it does make it very difficult for people who have jobs to actually come and participate in government. So that's why it was important to have this meeting on a Friday night, and I want to thank you all for spending your precious Friday night here, providing us with that feedback so that can inform the decisions. Going forward, I would love to work with you if you have interest in participating in the Home Leadership Council process, which is where we're actually looking at county-wide homeless problems and county-wide solutions, and where a lot of the funding decisions and the decisions about how we're going to approach homelessness is actually being made on a county-wide basis. So I would invite you to participate in that process. I think we're going to have maybe two more questions to wrap it up.
And then everybody's going to stay here, so we're going to continue to answer those questions as we move along. We just want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's time.
Okay, so we'll go one there and then maybe another one up here, unless there's anyone in the back.
Hi, I understand that technically this trail is county jurisdiction, but it's not like these people became homeless on the bike trail. And it's not like they never stepped foot off of the trail into the city. And it's not like it's not impacting businesses and residences that are in the city. So my question is, I see the Board of Supervisors and the county trying to do everything that they can and allocating money. Where's the city's $12 million? Why isn't the city looking for properties to help with this problem instead of fighting over jurisdiction? Because I feel like it's as much the city's problem as it is the county's. And we'll have better results if everybody actually does everything they can.
So the city of Santa Rosa, in our budgetary process, we've allocated approximately $3.2 million for our homeless services. Sam Jones Hall is a city-owned facility. We have a lot of investment there. That's the only regional shelter here. So we are consistent. We also, this city council, put over $500,000 for our Housing First Fund, which goes to rapid rehousing, master leasing. We are fully engaged in this. Not at the level of $12 million, because quite frankly, the city doesn't have $12 million to dedicate towards this, but we're active participants in this using evidence-based strategies to end homelessness. I encourage you, I think in about 2 weeks, we're talking about budget priorities. Come to the Santa Rosa City Council chamber, and if you think we should be putting more money towards our homeless services, there'll be a cost. We're going to stop doing something else, but I invite you to come and give that information and your opinion to the council.
So we're going to take 2 more questions, and I have someone who raised their hand as soon as we started this process. So after this, I'm going to take your question, but she's going to ask a question first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I work in mental health and homeless services, and I stand on a ground of lived experience. So I provide peer services and I'm boots on the ground throughout the stakeholder systems. Where's Ms. Robinson? Oh, hi, thank you. So I hear you folks saying that you're going to provide specialized navigation and advocacy and really work with our people to get us safe off the streets, the thousands of people. But the safety net has been dismantled over the last 2 years. We are in a fiscal disaster. And so where are you going to place people? I'm in all those systems every day at the shoulder of my people, and the behavioral health division budget has been completely decimated. So where are people going to go? Because there are no services. We're at 25% of what we were before the first fire disaster.
Well, you should know, she said she sits on a board with you.
So the board just made major investments in programs and services that we're utilizing those funds to bring people into treatment. The board approved, an RFP is on the street right now to do intensive mental health treatment and resources. And so we have restored that. The board has made significant investments to restore our budget over the last 2 years. So in terms of the decimation, we actually were able to sustain our programs. We've done some redesigning of our programs and services to be more effective at meeting the needs and to ensure that we have quality outcomes.
And we are working very hard to try to secure and find a spot for a psychiatric healthcare facility in Sonoma County, which would be the first that we just don't have one right now. And so we are working very hard on mental health and wellness.
We're going to take one more question, and then people are going to be here. We're going to be here so that we can continue this conversation.
My name is Jay Burks. I live 1/2 block off the Joe Rodota Trail. I live in Courtside Village. I'm on the board of directors. I have a couple of comments and a question. I've been writing letters since March. Why is it that we didn't get excited about this until October? I want to know why the Parks Department didn't get excited. I want to know why the SRPD, when you call, they don't come. I want to know what about the needles that are in my neighborhood, the pocket parks. They're not safe. They're not safe. My HOA is going to spend $8,000 to put up temporary fencing to try to keep people out of my homeowners association. That's wrong. You guys have dropped the ball and you haven't done your job, and I'm tired of paying my taxes for not doing your job. Why doesn't SRPD respond when you call? Why did it take the Parks Department 10 months to find out that this is a problem? And why can't the county and the city and the parks people get on the same page of this program? This is wrong.
And that is... And I think, thank you, sir. You've had your time. So I am very, very glad that we had this opportunity to come together. And no, this is extremely important, to come together as a community. No, you can laugh at me.
I'm going to ask everyone to please, for one more minute, honor the community agreements, and we're going to wrap up this meeting in 1 minute.
So to answer the question that Jay over there asked, the city and the county are now on the same page and working actively towards the same goal, which is to clear the Joe Rodota Trail by January 31st, not of 2021, but of 2020. That is the end of this month, and we are working forward urgently. We have our emergency operations center activated. We have people working around the clock. We are all working very, very hard towards a shared common goal. I am very, very glad that we had the City of Santa Rosa in attendance today. I think it's really critical that we are working together towards this common solution. It's not going to happen overnight, and I want to just mention that what we're seeing on the Joe Rodota Trail is not something that developed overnight, and it's not something that's going to be solved overnight. And we have had decades of policies that have eroded local government's ability to meaningfully respond to these kinds of crises. And so we need to pull together as local, state, and federal government to get this done. And I look forward to taking all of the feedback that was here tonight and to utilize that to inform our actions at the Board of Supervisors meeting next Tuesday and to also inform our actions going forward. So thank you all so much for attending. We will be around to answer questions in the front of the room.